Halo halo halo, selamat malam.
Halo, selamat malam semua. Apa kabar?
Good evening.
Yeah,
English mood English mood.
English mode.
English mode.
Let's try. Let's speak English.
Let's speak English. Iya,
Kita
Broken
ganti
English.
because
channel
yeah.
jadi tutorial belajar bahasa ya. Let's learn English. Nah,
Ya, karena malam hari ini kita, cukup spesial ya, karena kita kedatangan tamu yang, berbahasa Inggris. Jadi kita harus, bertanya dan menjawab juga dalam bahasa Inggris. Halo Mas IT,
halo
Mas
chat.
IT. Halo
Ya,
Chat,
kalau mau komen bahasa Indonesia boleh, nanti kita
good
terjemahin, tapi lebih oke
evening.
pakai
Ya, kalau mau bahasa
bahasa
Indonesia
Inggris
boleh,
langsung.
silakan. Selamat malam semuanya. Dan malam hari ini, kita kedatangan tamu spesial karena topiknya juga cukup spesial. Sering di channel ini sering dibawakan, tapi biar yang lebih ahli lah yang ngomong.
Sering dibahas, tapi nggak pernah,
Sering
sering
dibahas.
ditanyain, cuma nggak pernah dibahas secara mendalam. Karena
Iya, karena
sebagian dari kita
agak
nggak
susah
terlalu nguasain.
menjual menjual sesuatu. Karena, kan apa ya, bahasa pemrograman itu sifatnya apa ya, personal kan ya. Ada yang suka, kurang suka, atau segala macam. Tapi kita nggak bisa explain. We cannot explain why we like one language,
Over another.
over another gitu.
Yep.
So,
Let's
tonight
invite.
let's invite Mr.
Welcome.
Alan Wima or Wime?
Wima.
Wima. Halo.
Hello, good evening.
Halo Alan.
Mr. Alan.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
We are good.
Oh, I'm center stage now. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Hopefully I look all
You are
right.
on spotlight. So
Yeah.
so let's start. Let's start with who you are, what you do, and your background story.
Oh, wow. I always hate these very open, large questions. Yeah, so who am I? That's such an existential question, right?
That's very deep meaning. Who are you?
Exactly
Who
what
am
I'm
I?
saying.
Yeah, but you can type it on your CLI, you know. Who am I?
I think I need to ask Chat
Spit out the answer.
who am I?
Yeah.
In short, I would say, yeah, I'm just a software engineer. I've been here in Hong Kong for around 10 years, and around 3.5 years in Shanghai before here. And of course, grew up in USA. It's kind of a long story about how I got over here, as you can see. So basically, after I graduated from school, it was like about 2010, I think it was. No jobs, because we had the financial crisis. So I thought, okay, why not go to China for a couple of years, go back home. I did part A, part B, still haven't gone back yet. So that's kind of the real short story. I studied computer science and Mandarin Chinese. So that's why I went to mainland China first. It was in Shanghai. Then, I got an opportunity to work in a startup and spin the business from one type of business to another. And then, I can keep going, but you're talking about 10 years of history over here, right? So
Yeah.
So
I can keep going if you really want, but I don't think that's interesting.
more interested how you end up to Elixir.
Elixir, wow, that's a really great question. So I don't know about you guys, but so when I went to school, we learned C++, not C, and then we did Java. And I was always interested is how to do parallel multi-core programming.
Okay.
Have you guys ever done that stuff before or no?
With C++, yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun, I think. I haven't tried with C++, but I'm sure it's not that fun.
C# also can do that. I did try.
Yeah, Java can do that too.
Time ago.
Java can do that too, yeah.
So basically, I mean, the languages I knew at the beginning, of course, is C++, probably the most. And I was always interested in multi-core processing, right? Multi-core, multi-thread CPU processing. And I had this project that I wanted to do, and I can't remember what it was. It was some freelance project. If I'm speaking too fast, let me know.
Yeah.
No, it's
fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, I always speak too fast usually, maybe because I get too excited. But so I kept hearing about this language called Elixir, and I had no idea what it was. But I heard interesting things. At the time, I was doing Ruby, which I think a lot of people did Ruby, right? Anybody here not do Ruby? I think everybody did it.
Ruby.
You should have a try. It's really a lot of fun. And so one of the big names in Ruby was Jose Valim.
Yeah.
He worked at a company called Plataforma Tech. They did a lot of libraries for Rails. and he was working on Elixir, and I said, okay, good thing. I did Ruby for a while. I did Rails, of course, and I know Jose. I know the name, and I looked into it, and I said, wow, this is interesting stuff, because it was doing what I wanted to do, which was multi-core processing. I know Riza. Is it Riza, right? Riza or Riza?
Riza, yeah.
Riza. You've played around with Elixir before, so you know what I'm talking about. It's easy to do multi-core processing with Elixir. You basically
It's
set
like
up
by
something
default.
called,
Right?
yeah, it's out of the box, right? The way the whole
Out of-
system works is called a process, which is similar to a process on your computer, but it's a process within its own virtual machine. So they have this virtual machine called the Beam, BEAM.
Yeah.
And
Erlang virtual machine, yeah.
yeah, it manages its own processes, and they're basically green threads, which I'm not sure if you guys would know what a green thread is or not.
Can you explain a bit, maybe?
Yeah, but I'm always really bad at explaining this stuff. I know approximately what it is, but when it comes to explaining it, it's really hard to explain. So my understanding what a green thread is it's not a real thread, but it kind of acts like a thread in terms of it has its own memory and its own kind of thread of processing. That's why they call it a thread. But you can easily start and stop it. In any case, Google green thread, and you'll understand some more about it.
Yeah, let Wikipedia explain it.
So it's pretty interesting thing. The problem with threads is that they take a lot of resources to run, right? They're really quite expensive. But green threads are much more efficient in terms of the resources that they're required. Now, yeah, I can keep going on and on, but that's kind of how I got into it, because I wanted to be able to run a lot of work at the same time, and it was work that was parallel. And so I'm guessing your audience is a little bit kind of newer to programming, so I like to explain something that's quite important. Is there's parallel and then there's concurrent.
Yep.
They are different, but they're kind of required. So, well, if you have concurrent work, then you can parallelize it, right? So concurrent, you can think about something that's self-contained, and parallel is something that you run multiple concurrent processes of work at the same time in parallel. So in order to have parallel programming, you have to have concurrent programming to it.
And how to handle, is there a like race condition, something like that? What happened with
race condition? Wow. Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing about Elixir is that it actually solves a lot of the parallel programming that you need to do. So is it Ivan or Ivan, or how do you pronounce it?
It's Ivan.
Ivan.
Yeah.
Ivan, have you ever played around with Elixir before, or Erlang?
No, I heard about it. I learned a couple of bit, but I never like really try to make it into production. So yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, then one of the problems, because you did talk about, you did some stuff with C, C++ with parallel concurrent work.
Yep.
So with that, did you use mutexes?
Yep, I did mutexes, and well, in my experience, like when handling this race condition, like I really like chunk the data out, so it's actually concurrent process, just one way, so it doesn't affect one another. That's how I do it, but to be honest, I still don't know how to handle this condition in parallel processing yet.
Well,
I think we are more familiar with Node.js in terms of concurrency.
Yeah, I mean, I can go either way. So if you want to explain more, if you want me to talk about a little bit more with Node.js, I think Node.js still has a shared model of concurrency in terms of the memory. I'm not too sure about the memory, but I believe it might be shared. But in general, Node.js, unless something's changed, is single thread, single process, right? So if you want multi, so if you want multi, you have to spin up multiple
clusters.
Instances. Yeah. I think you guys' English is better than mine. But yeah, you have to spin up multiple processes, right?
That's correct.
And if you think about it, that's actually the way that Elixir works, is that you have multiple processes, not as heavy as multiple instances of Node.js, much lighter. But the other thing too is that it follows the same path of no sharing data. So in your previous work where you had mutexes, there's no need for a mutex because you never share the data.
Yeah.
You actually send a copy from one process to the other.
Ah.
So if you have an integer, right, you would send the integer copy to somebody else. What you're doing is you're just sending a copy to it.
Until it's
So
done.
if you edit that piece of data or you throw it away or whatever, it never hurts anybody else because they have their own copy. So there's no need for any mutexes. There's no need for any locks. There's no need for any kind of protection of data.
It's something like in a Git terms, you fork the data and do whatever
Exactly.
the thread doing with the data. And
But you
it's
merge
like-
it back in the end with the expectation to merge it back in the end after you're done with whatever it's supposed to do.
I think it
Not
depends
in
on
that case. You're merging back a copy, right? So if
Yeah.
you say, give me an integer, and you say, why don't you add 1 to it and send it back, I'm sending you back a copy of that 1.
Oh.
So the
So
data is
it's-
actually immutable.
So the data in the memory part is never changed, right? And when I get
Correct.
when I get the result, is that actually a new allocations in the memory, which if another process change it, I don't care because I get the copy of it, the original.
Exactly.
That makes sense now. Well,
So that
I get
solves
more.
a lot of issues already. But the one issue that it doesn't solve is if you have a very big chunk of data and you send a copy of that, that's a problem. But actually, there's kind of a solving with that, if I remember correctly. Like if you have a big, I mean, the only reason you have a big piece of data is like a big piece of binary data, right? Maybe if you have like a 2 gigabytes of DVD, video, you have that, right? You actually don't send a copy of that. You send a copy of the reference, but nonetheless, like we talked about before, the data is actually immutable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. How long did you learn Elixir? I'm just curious. Like, what is your main programming language before until you?
Ruby, right?
Exactly.
So Ruby
Yeah,
and from
Ruby
Ruby
was
to
my main
Elixir, Ruby to Elixir is easy because I know that. Is Phoenix inspired by Ruby? Correct?
Ruby on Rails.
Ruby on Rails
Yeah.
is sorry.
Framework,
Rails is inspired. Phoenix is inspired by Rails. Ruby on Rails.
Rails, yeah.
Yeah. So Ruby is the programming language. Rails is the framework.
Framework.
Yeah.
And Phoenix is the framework on top of
as
Elixir.
well.
Yeah.
Ah.
So Phoenix was heavily inspired by Rails.
So
So do
this
you
is
use Phoenix? Do
Mhm.
you use Phoenix? It's every day.
Yeah.
Do you use Phoenix?
Every day. Yeah.
Or
Approximately.
in
Yeah.
the- Oh.
This is a good question in this context. You came from the object-oriented programming, right? Like Ruby, Java, or C++. How to change the mindset to be functional?
OOP to functional.
Yeah,
Wow,
because
that's a-
for
that's
me,
a-
for
yeah.
me
Elixir-
myself, it's compared to Ruby, the syntax is similar, right? But
Yeah.
The mindset.
mindset and the paradigm is different, way much different. So how you come?
Elixir is a dynamic functional, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dynamic functional language, but now they're adding types to it. But coming back to the main question, right? How do you change your mindset from OOP to functional? Practice. Really, it's about practice. Yeah, it's a big one.
Easy.
Just being
Practice.
practice, reading lots of code. It's really the truth, right? And
Yes.
it takes time to get into it. Some tips is that when you become functional, you start to break out stuff and you focus on the data. It sounds kind of weird, right? This is my interpretation. I think I've seen other people say the same thing. What I noticed is that when I went from object-oriented to functional, is that I actually start thinking more and more about the data that I have. And you find yourself thinking more about that. And then you find yourself operating on the data rather than if with OOP,
Cost.
you would encapsulate the data and then you would call methods on it. And that would in turn manipulate the inside data, which actually sounds very complicated if you think about it. To me, it sounds quite
Yeah.
complicated. And
Mhm.
so for functional, you definitely spend more time thinking about the data structure that you have, and then you think about transforming that data through different steps. If somebody can pull up some code sample of pipelining, it'd be really helpful to kind of understand how that works. Because I find functional to be so much easier to follow than OOP, because OOP, anything can happen. You have getters and setters, but actually when you use a getter, you actually have the real reference to that data, as opposed to functional, where you're always going to get a copy of that data. So I think basically every single functional language that I could think of runs the same way. So this is a great example. So you have a function called setup user. You have parameters that come in. That's probably something from a form submit. So if you just read this from top to bottom, it's basically you have 3 steps happening. First, you create the user, then you're going to send an email, and then you're going to start the trial. It really reads like steps 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at this same thing using OOP, it could be simple like this, but it could also be very, very complicated, because you could have one method that does all this. You could have who knows what. You could have all kinds of stuff. But to me, this one is very, very clear. Just read step 1, 2, 3. And for those of you who are brand new to Elixir, this is called the pipe operator on line 10, 11, 12. All it means is take the previous data and put it into the first
Argumen,
parameter.
parameter, yeah.
Yeah.
It's piping. It's piping. Like
Yeah, it's piping.
something like
I think this came from F# actually.
promise then. Probably.
And
Similar.
JavaScript will have
Promise,
it's supposed to have this too, actually. I'm not sure if it's out yet or not, but they're supposed to have the
Not
same
yet.
thing.
Yeah, not yet,
Yeah.
but
Not yet.
it's still in proposal.
Yeah. And so basically every single step, you're actually transforming the data. You're not changing the original data. You're actually making a copy, mutating that copy, and then keep going on.
But each function need to return something, right? Should return something with that piping.
Yeah, but so every function has a return value. Same with Ruby. Python, I think not. Even Python, I think it returns none if you return nothing. But for sure,
think so.
Ruby returns something all the time.
Yeah.
Well, in PHP, you can just return void or nothing.
Return void.
In
PHP I don't know what it is anymore. It's always something new every year.
yeah, it's just
It's becoming more and more like Java. Is what I see.
Yeah, but
Too broad.
in Indonesia, it's still the most popular language.
Oh, it is, yeah, but
Most
it's
demanded.
really complicated. I tend to be wary of languages where the creators just backed away from it and just. If I remember correctly, the creator of PHP wants nothing to do with it. That's what I remember. Maybe I remember wrong. Things have changed, but that gives me a little bit of worrisome if the creator is kind of backed away from it.
well, lately they changed a lot since PHP 8. And
Is it 8 now? Last time I remember it was
Yeah.
7. Must be 20 by now,
8.
no?
8.3 now.
They have
Only
types
8?
now.
Okay.
They have,
They have pipes?
they-
Really?
they-
Types,
no,
types.
types. They
Oh,
introduced
they have
types.
pipes.
Types.
Oh, types.
Typing.
You never had types
Uh,
before? Okay.
Well, in PHP now you can declare strict types, and now the order of the parameter or argument is no longer absolute. So you can, as long as the parameter name's the same, you can just put the parameter anywhere you want. Like it doesn't matter anymore. And yeah, they have spread operator now. More like, so they just absorbing from different
They're
languages
just
and put into
trying to
everything
keep
in.
up.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up, yeah.
There's a benefit for coming late, is that you can take all the good ideas that work. But then I think PHP sounds like a Franken language now, with all these different things. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
We have some more questions in here. What is this? Hello, Kong Allen. What does the Kong mean?
Brother.
Mister.
brother, Mister.
Brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, brother.
It's-
It literally
no, it's
means
brother.
elder brother.
Elder brother. Older brother.
Brother.
Oh,
Older brother.
yeah, I am getting
Hmm.
that's some break coming in.
Okay. This is we have a very good question. So Andre said his main language. So, but
Non-technical
he
question,
wants to
but
be
no less
Elixir
important.
as his main language. But like me, we cannot get any Elixir jobs. What do you think about
Indonesia
that?
probably.
Indonesia or Asia, Southeast Asia, maybe.
Yeah, that's a really great question. You kind of have to make them, if that makes sense. So the current place I'm helping out at, they never did Elixir. They had no interest in it, but they believed in me and they let me choose what I thought was correct. And I told them what I wanted to choose. And I came there saying, listen, it's not going to be easy to find people who know this language, but the benefits are XYZ. I think I've almost never, I cannot say never for sure, but probably almost never have a problem with choosing Elixir. When I start a project, right? So you may not be able to find a job doing that specific language, but what you can do is you can do your own, personal projects. You can keep checking around, find a startup that is starting out, get hired, try to, ask them to use this one. There's many different ways to do it. That's what I recommend, because I know that it's very difficult to find a job using Elixir. But I think there is some companies in Indonesia doing Elixir. Is that right?
Some
There
of
should
them,
be
yeah.
some. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're hard
there
to
should be
find.
some.
But what you can also do, you can start up a meetup group. So I start up one. Risa, you come sometimes. I need to start another one.
Yeah.
I need to start another one next month. And
Okay.
that will allow you to network with other people who are doing Elixir or Erlang, right? If you can do one or the other, I think that's great. Because even if you can't do Elixir now, but you're doing Erlang, once you have the opportunity to do Elixir, I think it's going to be straightforward. It's going to be easy for you to find if you already have a Beam language, even Gleam, right? Because it's pretty much all in the hood. It's about the same to me. Gleam is probably a little bit different, but I haven't tried it out yet. So I just talked about Gleam right now. Gleam is another programming language on the Beam. So Beam is the VM. So think about JVM for Java. Beam is for Erlang and Elixir. And another quick thing that we didn't talk about, and I'm going to try to relay the information now. Erlang was the first language on the Beam.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Elixir came out later. There's many other languages, but Elixir is the most popular one. And then the latest one that's becoming popular is called Gleam, Gleam. So Gleam is a type-safe compiled version of on the Beam,
Erlang.
right? So as we talked about before, Elixir and Erlang both are dynamic, meaning that they're not strongly typed, meaning that you can type whatever you want and it'll still run.
Nice logo. for
Yeah,
new
it's a very
language.
cool logo. So
Gleam is like TypeScript for Elixir.
well,
Or
I mean,
Elixir.
as you can see, the syntax is kind of like, you see, it's got this import kind of like
Rust.
Python, or it's
Rust,
well,
no?
the compiler is written in Rust. It's very interesting. So unless something's
Oh.
changed, the way it works is you write Gleam like this, and it's going to compile your code into core Erlang,
Mhm.
and then core Erlang will then be compiled into Erlang bytecode.
Oh.
So the way it
Okay.
works is that you have your language. Say you have Erlang. Erlang gets compiled to some type of AST, which is abstract syntax tree.
Syntax tree.
Yep, and then that will be compiled into core Erlang. Core Erlang then gets compiled into Erlang bytecode, if I remember correctly. And so the compiler for this one's written in Rust. So Rust to core Erlang.
Oh. And Gleam also compiled to JavaScript, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Does it?
interesting.
It probably can. I think nearly every language can now with pure JavaScript. Okay, not you're not
Even
talking about
PHP can
WebAssembly, right?
compile.
No.
To JavaScript.
Gleam
Okay.
compile to JavaScript. I've heard
Really?
that, but yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Show me what
Interesting.
this one.
Let's see the
This is
compiled one. Yeah.
this one, the source code written in Glim. This one is the
Oh,
JavaScript.
that's the compiled result.
Interesting.
Ah,
Okay, that's interesting.
Interesting.
But maybe
Let's
it
do it.
would lose something if it's not run on, Erlang.
Well,
when-
you're not
when
going to
it
have the
was
beam,
compiled
which
to
I think is
JavaScript. Oh.
not having the beam. I think is the worst part, because the
Because
beam
of
is really
the-
a powerful machine.
concurrency.
But I
Payment is a
think
beam?
they tend to be in the front end because there is a query selector for DOM selection right here.
So it's on flavor, it seems.
Uh-huh.
There was
Not
a
for the back
project.
end.
I think it might still be worked on. I'm not too sure, but it used to be called. Oh wow, I forgot the name now. Basically, they got Erlang to compile and run using WebAssembly in the front end.
Oh, I've heard that, but I don't remember.
I forgot the name. It's changed names at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
one time.
Oh, they changed it.
I think it's called Lunas, Lean.
Or was some
No, this is
X?
another one.
No.
I think it's still being worked on.
Elixir or no.
Or
Not
no.
unless they change the name. I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
not Orb.
All right. Let's see.
Firefly.
Firefly. Oh,
Yeah, that's the new name if I remember correctly. Or no, is it?
yeah. I think so. A new compiler and runtime for Beam language. This one,
Maybe.
but this is archive. Read only.
Well, I'll look for it and then we'll see if we can
Okay.
find it still. I think it's still being worked on.
So, yeah, about that, about the Elixir ecosystem
Lumen.
in
Lumen.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like a
Lumen.
Laravel Lumen.
Yeah,
L-U-M-E-N.
why all the frameworks use the same
Oh, it
name?
is called Firefly. It is called Firefly. It used to be called Lumen.
Oh,
Oh.
used to be
Yeah.
called Lumen and then become a
And
Firefly.
now it's called Firefly. Yeah.
This one, Lumen?
Yep.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's called
cargo.
Firefly now?
Oh,
Since September 1st of 2022. From Dockyard.
Dockyard
Okay. Oh.
So if you go to
Firefly.
getfirefly.org. Yeah.
So you can run Elixir
Using
on
WASM.
browser.
Browser
But-
also, it's WASM if I remember correctly.
But
Unless something's
since-
changed. Yeah, see here it is. Target WASI. W-A-S-I.
Since we lose Beam here, that means we cannot run it as a concurrency anymore, right? So it's just like
Well, I didn't say that, right? Because so the thing is, these guys were actually in the group and talking. So when I'm talking about the group, I'm talking about the consortium, the group that was making the rules, what your browser can and cannot do. And so they were saying we
Oh.
need this feature and we don't need this feature, and they were talking like what stuff they did. So it may still run about the same.
ah.
I haven't tried it, but I believe that they're using web workers or something like that to do the processes, but they may have its own thing too.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Which for?
If we can do that, that means it's really good for to optimize large processes like compiling or rendering or compressing images. That could be good.
Well, I mean, the Beam is not really made for very intensive things, but you can shell out to C, Rust, whatever, if you want to do some computation intensive stuff.
Okay.
If you need to, it's actually pretty simple with Rust. But what it's great for is what we talked about, like having concurrent parallel work. It's very, very good at that, and very good at recovering from any types of errors. And you can implement all kinds of retry operations, things like that.
Time to learn new language.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about OTP, which OTP will blow your mind. And not one-time
Yeah.
password, by the way.
Platform, open telecom
Open telecom
Yeah.
platform, yes.
One-time password.
Yeah, so
But-
we can touch a little bit on OTP since I mentioned it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Please do.
So yes, as they said, OTP stands for Open Telecom Platform. If I remember correctly, that was a buzzword that their sales team came up with, or somebody in marketing, something like that. But basically, nobody calls it Open Telecom Platform. They always call it OTP. It's kind of like GNU, GNU, GNU.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically GNU stands for, I forgot. It's basically a recursive acronym with no real meaning. So OTP has now become something like that. What you can think about is that OTP is a collection of libraries that were battle tested over 30 years of working with Erlang. And they take all of the features of Erlang and the Beam and put it together into some very great patterns. And so there's things like a supervisor, which means that it's going to watch a process. If that process breaks or fails, it'll automatically restart it for you. It's got a gen server, which is basically short for a generic server. So if you need to have something that operates concurrently in the background, we can send it data and it does stuff with it. Gen server is usually your case. And there's a lot of other things in there. So that's kind of the short thing about what is OTP. It's got a lot more things into it also. If you look at this page, amnesia is a big one. So amnesia, as you hear, it sounds like amnesia, which is forgetting things, but it's actually a database for storing data. So it's obviously a programmer joke. As you can see, it's written by Robert Verding. If you he usually hangs around my meetup group I throw up every month. And he talked a little bit about amnesia.
Amnesia.
I think amnesia is also the database of RabbitMQ, but now they're replacing that because it's not. I mean, it's an old database and it doesn't work for everything. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Amnesia, I believe, is distributed and it runs through the networking. Sorry, I'm having a little bit blank right now. And anyways, maybe we have more questions, people in the audience.
Yeah. Wait, let me check.
Yeah, there's a highlighted one.
The
This
highlighted
is
one.
actually my question too. I haven't. Oh,
Sure.
I've used Ruby on Rails. Yeah. I haven't used Elixir. If I want to learn it, where should I start?
Sure. I think really great introduction. So it depends on if you have cash or not, because there's of course some really great resources. But nonetheless, if you go to elixirlang.org, they have basically a learning and doc section. I think the learning section itself will give you a pretty good. Oh, sorry, not learning. Is it guides? Maybe not guides. Things have changed a little bit. I think it's guides.
Yeah, it's called
Guides,
learning.
yeah.
Yeah, the guides. Actually, probably the guides
do
which you want to take a look at.
Oh,
They go pretty in depth about the different things within Elixir. That will give you a nice overview.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a little bit of cash, I highly recommend you pick up Elixir in Action. That will get you a very good in-depth knowledge of OTP.
Mm-hmm.
If you like videos, if you go to Pragmatic Studio, they have an Elixir OTP course. Fantastic course, in my opinion.
Okay. Pragmatic Studio.
Yeah, Pragmatic Studio. They have very great Elixir OTP courses.
This one?
So the Elixir OTP one, yeah, this is a good one. Also Phoenix LiveView, which is also really great.
Yeah. We need to talk about LiveView.
Wait, Lisa.
supervisor.
Go up a little bit.
Go up?
Just on top, yes. So we have the purchasing parity from Indonesia.
Oh,
Yay.
60%?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
The perks of being a country with poor exchange rate.
Okay.
It's quite expensive, but I highly recommend
worth it,
if I'm not telling you guys what to do, but if you have friends, come together. That's all I'm going to say.
Once you get it.
Get it?
Yeah, I highly recommend the course. It's really good. They go pretty in depth with stuff, and even on YouTube, there's a lot of different resources.
Yeah.
But
Of course.
I mean, again, if you just study some of the projects that are out there that are open source, you're going to learn a lot.
What
know,
what
just like
do
any
you have
language.
any reference project to learn
Yeah,
for
open
Elixir?
source projects.
Open source
Open
project or
source.
something? Yeah.
To learn. I mean, if you look at Phoenix, probably a really great one to take a
Mhm.
look at. Phoenix LiveView is probably another good one. Those two alone are already pretty good. If you want something simpler, wow. I don't know. It's. I think to be honest, if you want to get started and you have a Rails background, picking up Phoenix is really simple in comparison. They used to be much more similar, but now they've definitely have some differences to them. But the nice part about Phoenix is that it abstracts all the complications that you would typically have if you have a brand new Elixir project.
So Phoenix to Elixir is like, say, Laravel to PHP. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes
The
and
web
no.
framework that sorts
Yes and no.
everything for
So
you.
I'm not too sure. I haven't done Laravel in wow, for sure over 10 years. What I can say for sure, because I've done a lot of Rails and Ruby. When you have a Rails app, you can't add any Ruby library to a Rails app. You have to have a Rails plugin for a Rails app. That's what's been my experience. Things may have changed recently, but you always have to look for a Rails plugin.
Yeah.
Now, for a Phoenix app, there's actually no such thing as a Phoenix app necessarily. They're all Elixir applications. So basically, you can use any Elixir library that you want within Phoenix. There's no like special thing that you need to do.
Including the library that comes with OTP. That means you can use it
Yeah.
inside Phoenix.
Yeah, you can use it out of the box. It's the way that Phoenix does things is that they put all of the web stuff in one folder, and you're supposed to put all of your application specific into another folder. And it's not like trying to be like, you don't have to follow the pattern, but it helps you follow the pattern because it helps you to separate and make sure that you can actually have different types of entry points into your code, right? So basically, you could actually create another app that just has like a CLI, so basically a command line interface, or even a GUI application. Is it time for Prey right now?
No.
Oh, I hear some weird sounds. I don't know what that was.
It's
That's probably from my side.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, one thing that I think, in my opinion, is one thing good about Elixir is the community, is the warming and very intimate, right? Like we can accidentally meeting the author, the Joseph Alim in your meetup. That's a good community vibes for me. Maybe
So no
because
drama like
it's
JS JavaScript community. No.
JavaScript or PHP or anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
any
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to say there's definitely less drama in Elixir community compared to other communities because I'm also in the Rust community and in what else am I in? Elixir, Rust,
Ruby?
Flutter.
Ruby? Or
Flutter,
Oh, I'm
okay.
not too much into Ruby. I mean, I haven't. It's not like I hate Ruby. It's just I just don't use it much anymore. But yeah, Flutter, Elixir, and Rust are the three languages I really focus on.
Okay.
But yeah, out of those three communities, I would say for sure Elixir is relatively drama free. It's not totally drama free, but it's relatively drama free as opposed to JavaScript. I don't know what's going on with them. Again, the creator, he disappeared somewhere.
We don't know
I think he's
either.
working on Dino, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
yeah.
Node.js
The
guy.
Node.js, yeah,
It's a
Node.js guy.
runtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's gone. Python, he stepped down because of drama. What's his name? Guido.
Guido van
PHP, we
yeah.
talked about him. So most of the creators, they kind of left, I think. I mean, Bjorn is retired, I believe. I don't know. I don't think he's doing much now. It's a consortium of people. So most of the creators actually kind of back away after some time. But Jose is still there. He's still doing stuff. But he's definitely more of a shepherding kind of style.
Okay. So what kind of application that you usually choose Elixir, let's say, over Rust, because you know Rust as well?
Yeah, if I'm doing a web-based application, for sure I choose Elixir, because the Phoenix and Phoenix LiveView, as we briefly talked about, there's no comparison. It just works. It works great. It takes very little resource to run. The story, the web, how easy it is to create a website using Elixir and Phoenix is just too easy compared to other languages that I've talked about. I mean, obviously PHP, maybe it's easier. I mean, you have Laravel, you have Rails, of course, can be quite quick. But with the amount of resource that it uses, with the ease of use, with the innovations that they're doing, I just don't see a reason to not use it, especially because of the resource and the real-time features of Phoenix that you have out of the box.
Hmm. What about Rust? What kind of application that you built with Rust?
Well, I could talk about an actual application I created using both Elixir and Rust together. If maybe that's more
Okay.
interesting because it kind of shows the power of the two.
Hmm.
So I had this client. They're a pretty big MNC. You definitely heard of them. I'm not going to name who they are, but I had to integrate with their ERP system and actually create PHP files using that for their website. So basically, they wanted to integrate all the products into their existing website. So I had to go there. I had to pull all the files. So one product would have, so for instance, Hong Kong, we have basically 2 or 3 languages. You got traditional Chinese, you have simplified Chinese, and you have English.
Hmm.
And then you have other countries, Indonesia. I don't know if you have more than one language or not. For sure, you probably have English, and you have, is it Bahasa?
Bahasa Indonesia, ya?
It's like Indonesian language.
Yeah.
Indonesian language, yeah.
And so you may have more than that, but if you think about one country, for Indonesia has 2. Hong Kong, which is not really a country, by the way, because I don't want to get in trouble, it has at least 3 languages, 2 to 3 languages. And, in USA, we have at least 2, I think. We had Spanish and English. You probably want to support those 2 at least, maybe even French. But yeah, so every country they have usually a couple, right?
Multiple languages.
Exactly. So for this MNC, they had basically everything, every single country, and then all these different languages. And so I had to create all this and then they have hundreds of products. So that's probably, I don't know what that would be, tons of files, right? And to me, I'm like, well, obviously I want to do this not sequential, but in parallel. And so that's what I did. But the problem is it took at least about a half hour and 4 gigabytes of RAM using just Elixir. So I had, I don't remember how many. I had thousands of these XML files, and I had to go through the file and go up and down XML in order to get the data that I needed. So originally I tried XPath. It was too slow. And then I tried another method, which is basically read the file line by line and pattern match out the data I needed, which we can talk about pattern matching later on. But basically pull the data that I need. That was also too slow. And so what I did was I did XPath with Rust. So I just gave it to Rust, and the whole process end to end was just tens of megabytes and 10 seconds. So it went from a half hour, 4 gigabytes of data down to 10 seconds and tens of megabytes of data.
Wow. Nice.
I know that parsing XPath with XML on PHP is really, really slow.
Really
Slow.
slow, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Too slow. Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can see,
Parsing string.
there's no language that does it all, but that's why I focus on those 3 languages. But you can see specifically Rust and Elixir, putting the 2 together, you get something quite powerful.
Okay. So what in your opinion, in your own opinion, why Elixir is not more popular than it is now?
No, wait, or maybe is it just Indonesia? Maybe in Hong Kong or maybe in the States, it's different.
It depends upon what you're doing.
popularity?
It depends what you're doing, right? So let's kind of roll back a little bit, right? Erlang came from Ericsson, which you probably heard of Sony Ericsson. They were popular because they made telephone switches, right? So originally Erlang came out because they had a very difficult hard requirement to follow. You had to have a box that handles switching of telephone calls, routing telephone calls from one place to another. So you have some very big requirements, because when you upgrade those boxes, they cannot be down for so long, because then you're going to get a fine. Because obviously people need to call 911 or 110 or whatever number you have for your emergency number. So they can go down, but not for very long. The other thing you have to worry about too is you don't want somebody's call to hurt somebody else's call. Maybe the whole thing go down, right, because of some bug. So errors have to be isolated. So now you can see why they have processes, and processes can be isolated because of one process, one thread, or whatever you want to call it. So in this case, in the Beam terminal, one process goes down. It won't take down the other calls. The other thing that it has, which we didn't talk about too, which is very interesting. So this language came out in the early 80s.
Oh,
It has
wow.
hot code upgrade. It's older than Java, older than Python, Erlang. So it also has hot code upgrades, which, if you don't know what that is, basically that means that as the system is running, it can be upgraded to the next version
without downtime. It's like
zero downtime.
Hot
Zero
replace,
downtime.
something like hot replace.
Yeah, it's called hot code upgrade.
Hot code upgrade.
Hot code reload is something else, but this is called hot code upgrade.
Yeah.
Oh.
And if you think about it, that's perfect, right? Because actually there's a video called the Erlang movie. You should watch it on YouTube. It's very exciting. So they show actually in progress, they showed that, hey, there's a bug.
The movie.
It's got called
Yes,
Erlang the
Erlang
movie.
the
Check it
movie.
out after the show. The guy, he makes a phone call, puts the phone down, takes another phone call, makes a call, and it causes a bug. That call itself goes down. They find the bug. They fix the bug. They recompile the code. They push the code to the telephone switch, and then they pick up the old call and they say, "Okay, let's try it again." Works just fine. This is the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not many languages I can think of have hot code upgrades.
Yeah. And this is out of the box. We don't have to do anything to use it, right?
You have to be able to build the
Oh,
upgrade, but it's
Yes,
built into the
Built in,
the
yeah.
VM. It's built into the stuff.
Yeah, without installing any third-party libraries or something like that. Yeah.
Well, for Elixir, they don't support out of the box, I think. So there's probably some more stuff you have to do. But in any case, it's possible, right?
Okay.
It's definitely possible because it's built into the VM.
All right.
I'm curious about how this life cycle of Elixir and Phoenix is a web applications. So that means I'm imagining it like you have a Beam as a VM similar to JVM with Tomcat, Apache Tomcat. You need to have a web server, right?
Yep.
So you still need a web server like Nginx that going to proxy into this VM in a certain port, something like that, and then you still have a load balancer, something on top of it.
You don't have to, actually.
Oh,
You don't have to.
Interesting.
It could be. It doesn't need to have a front proxy, but you can. Yeah, you can do that.
that means you say that Beam can run in the port 80 and 443.
Yeah.
Oh, and that means you have a certain routing inside the application itself, and okay.
And it works great because if you think about it, remember we talked about processes, right? So every request that comes in is its own process. So another reason that I do use it is because if you think about the telephone switch, as I just explained, it fits the situation of telephone switches fit problem back then fits the same problems we have now. You want to be able to
Okay.
have one request that doesn't break everybody else's experience on your website, so you have the process isolation. You want to be able to upgrade your code while people are still using it. You know, you don't want people to have downtime, just kind of like Facebook feels like. And another thing we didn't talk about too is it can handle a lot of load. You think about it, right? I think we just had a cricket match. I think I heard from some Indian guy. I think India just won. That's why he told me. And so, you know, he wants to be able to call everybody, you know, hey, we won, blah, blah, blah. Well, so calls they happen, right? Some event happens, everybody gets on the call. So you want to be able to handle a lot of requests without taking down the server. So the way that Elixir works is that it's actually able to handle a lot of traffic, but it's going to give equal time to every single process. So if you have a lot of people using your server, then they may get a slower response time, but at least they're still going to get a response up until a certain amount. But that's a different thing. But it can still handle a lot of traffic, which is what a telephone switch should handle. And also your website should be able to handle lots of traffic too.
Yeah, I haven't really got a mental image of how to deploy a Phoenix web app, but found that article is. Can you, Riza, when you open it,
Yeah.
please?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, in
Okay,
the
so-
Elixir guides, I think they show you how to deploy it. It's actually pretty simple. It's like a mix release command. It's actually built into the app.
Yeah, I heard about mix to build the app similar to
Yeah.
npm
Laravel.
build.
Oh.
This
Yeah,
one,
npm.
Yeah,
You can
Yeah,
see
you
the
have
in the
host
documentation
on
as
a
well. Yeah,
VPS.
there
Oh,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
deployment
Yeah, they
in
have
here.
with different
Oh,
services,
yeah,
or
yeah.
Fly.io, whatever.
Fly.io is most convenient one, like Heroku, something like that.
It's a cloud server. Fly.io.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It's a PaaS, push as a service. So you just do git push basically.
Mhm.
Well, actually, no, they have their own thing. It's similar to push.
Yeah, you can just type a fly launch, and they automate all the thing, including
That this
creating
is
the Docker file or something.
this is similar to Google App Engine as well, right? Those time App Engine.
I think
Uh,
it runs something like a Google App Engine. You have your own
Yeah,
version of
something like that.
Postgres and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I also have a couple of
Interesting.
videos on my site too, on my YouTube channel that
Sure.
show you how to deploy to VPS. It's not
Oh.
it's not as difficult as you think. The first time was just like with any app, it's going to take you some time, but once you do it the first time, it's pretty simple.
But you still need
Nice.
to have a latency because of probably using a Postgre behind it, and database is bottleneck in database connection. The app is becomes slower, and you need to scale it eventually, right? So
But with any app, usually the database is going to be the slowest one.
Yeah.
that's true. The
That's
IO
that's
is
what that's
always
the
the
way it is.
slowest one. Yeah, that's
Well,
correct.
actually, interesting use case. Did you guys, very old use case, things have changed since then, but it was a great use case. There's, hold on. There's a company called Bench. Oh, wow. What is their name? I forgot the name now. I'll see if it comes to my mind. They had at least 120 servers. They had a mixture of Java with Ruby and some other stuff. Then they replaced everything with Elixir. It went from at least 120 servers down to 5. And they claim
Bleacher
that they
report?
can turn off. Yeah, Bleacher Report. That's right.
Bleacher report.
It's well reported. They talked about it a lot. This is a very old article, and even old report. Right? They said that they had 5 servers, and they could take it down to just 2, just because they need redundancy. They removed all their caching layer 2.
Hmm.
So they didn't really have any caching. It was just reading straight from the database or wherever kind of stuff that they had. And they had a lot of very specific content, right? So if you like Sport A and not Sport B or C, you would log in, you would not see B or C. You would only see Sports A stuff. It's very particular to how you like your sports content.
It's interesting.
This one, right?
Yeah, it's an old report. You see 2017. Sorry, I told you it's at least 120. It's 150 in this article to just 5. And they also said they can turn down 3 of them, if I remember correctly.
Wow. From Ruby on Rails monolith to Elixir finish, yeah.
Well, they also had Java too, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
I think it was just for handling push or something. For some specific jobs.
I see. Oh, interesting.
How about handling streaming or some kind like WebSocket
WebSocket?
with Phoenix? Yes,
It's
socket.
easy. It's built
Socket.
in. They have something called a channel.
Channel.
So when I say it's easy to program all this kind of stuff.
but
they added something
already
on
out of
top
the
of the
box.
WebSocket.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they have something called a channel. So basically, with one WebSocket, you can subscribe to multiple channels. So with one WebSocket connection, you can have multiple different topics coming in.
Okay, now I'm sold. I'm going to try this.
Yeah, I'm gonna
You
try
have
that
to.
too. Because
Now I'm
it's
sold.
but it's strange though. So I got into web development some 8 no 9 10 years ago. Like I was learning by myself, look for resources online. None of the resources I found, like none of the websites or CSS tricks or whatever, they hardly mentioned Phoenix as an option for learning web frameworks. It was always, well, the basic, of course, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, obviously. But then when it came to framework,
Server-side
it's just,
rendering? Laravel.
well, yeah, PHP and
PHP.
Laravel is very popular in
Popular.
Indonesia. So of course there's a lot of resources, but other than that, just React was just getting started, and then after that, like Swell, Vue, but I don't know why
Next.js.
and all the spin-off of React-based frameworks, but hardly anyone outside of the Phoenix and Elixir community ecosystem itself like publish lots of content about Phoenix. I don't know. That's my impression. I don't know if that's changed
Yeah.
now after many years. But
There's some big streamers who are talking about it nowadays. There's a guy named Theta. Is it Theta? He's talking a lot about it recently. There's
Theo,
some
I
other.
think.
Was it Theo? Sorry, I forgot his name.
Theo,
THE something.
Prevision.
Yeah.
No. Oh no.
He's got blonde hair and the
Yeah,
mustache. That's all I
this
remember.
guy, this guy. Yeah.
T3 guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
T3.
So he's publishing a lot of stuff, as you see. He's got 299K. Well, he's not. I thought he was actually bigger than that. I thought he was in the millions. A lot of these guys, they're actually talking a lot about it. It's just, it takes time, right? Because one of the things I was pushing for Elixir in a previous job, and the response I got from my manager was that if you see on the floor, all of us are doing Java and React, that means your idea is not going to work. Meaning, like, not because it's not going to work. It's more like he wanted to say, like, your idea is stupid. That was, I mean, maybe I'm reading too much, but that was basically his meaning. Is like, as you can see, we're all smart guys. We're not using Elixir. We're doing good stuff. We're using Java and React. Therefore, we're doing the right thing. And your idea is too radical and doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of benefit to it. I mean, how can you go from 150 servers down to 5? Right? I mean, how much money can you save? There's a lot of articles. If you look up Elixir and save money, you'll find a lot of articles about people who switched and they saved a lot of money just from that.
I think Pinterest as well.
Pinterest, yeah, they use it for their spam or something like that. Checking. They use it for some. Google uses it too, allegedly. Do you remember that Google leak that came out a couple of weeks ago? They have Elixir in there somewhere.
Yes.
At least they mentioned it. I don't
Google
know how much
search,
they actually use it. Yeah, in that leak, I don't. They mentioned about Elixir somewhere. I forgot what it was exactly.
Okay.
But we didn't even talk about Phoenix LiveView, which I think is a big game changer.
Let's talk about it then. Phoenix LiveView.
Well, so what I noticed a lot was Rails. So what I liked about Rails is that Rails always felt like it was always bringing something new to the table. They had this asset pipeline. They had a lot of other things that were kind of new, MVC, all these things, these new ideas. Once I got into Elixir and Phoenix started having new ideas that people were not having before. One of the best ideas that came out most recently is LiveView. So LiveView is basically SSR server-side rendering. So we talked about channels before, right? So for this one's actually built on top of channels. So what happens is that you have a single template. Your web browser goes there, it loads the whole page as a static template. Then you connect over WebSocket, and you're going to get a fresh rendering of that same site. And then any changes that happen in the background will be sent over WebSocket to you.
Yep.
And
Similar to
LiveWire or
Sorry, Ivan?
Hotwire?
LiveWire.
LiveWire or
LiveWire
Hotwire?
came. I mean,
LiveWire.
why is it called LiveWire? Because it came from LiveView. It was came.
Yeah.
You know, that came from it, but I mean, it was inspired by it.
First came is LiveView, and then there is Hotwire in Ruby on Rails, and then
Ruby,
LiveWire in
LiveWire in
Laravel.
Laravel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Wire family.
Wire family.
Lots of live. Yeah. So, and they really spent a lot of time to make this efficient. So you're just sending down the change after you have the initial load after WebSocket. So if it's just one character change, you're only going to get basically one change, one character change across.
Yeah.
Super efficient. And it doesn't have to be first. So usually what happens is that you do some event, right? You send the event down the wire, down the WebSocket to the other side. Logic happens. You send back the diff of HTML back to you. But you can also just have it one-way direction. So you can have, you're just sitting there and then you can have pub sub updates on the server side that gets broadcasted across. So like a chat application, you can definitely build
Or,
it.
you know, AI stuff, like you stream the response.
Whatever you like. But the point is that you don't have to always do something in order to get something back. I mean, and the good part about this part over here, it's very clear, right? So you have we can kind of walk through this very quickly. You have use Phoenix LiveView. That's got some magic to it. I'm not going to talk about that. This render function, that's your template. So you have that
What's
add
that
temperature.
templating language? Like HAML or like ERB?
No, it's called Heeks. HEEX. Heeks.
Heeks.
So what Heeks is, it's a, because basically so Elixir comes with EEX, which is called like embedded Elixir something. I think it's called embedded Elixir maybe. It could be anything. It could be a text file. I was using EEX to create those PHP files, but Heeks is HTML aware EEX. So it has to be valid HTML. So if you have some invalid HTML, say a missing closing tag, it's not going to compile.
Yeah, you can use string like this, or you can create a new Heeks file that contains this
Like partials.
Yeah, partials.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's the template. Then the mount function gets called twice, right? Like I said, the initial page load and also upon WebSocket connection.
Initial state. This one initial state, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're assigning. So in this case, you're assigning temperature variable to 70, and then you're setting the temperature assigned to the socket with the 70.
Send to the client. Huh?
Well, it
Send to
attaches the
the
socket,
template. Yeah.
and the socket then uses the assigns and the template. So you see the at temperature over there.
This one.
Yeah. And then you have handle events. So that's whenever event happens, because you can have a click, you can have a, hover, whatever, any kind of event basically you can send. And you can see over here this PHX click.
Yeah, the event name is a PSX click, and it will trigger the increment temperature handle event
function
over here.
Yeah. So if you haven't used Elixir before, this can be a little bit confusing. Basically, this is called a pattern match. So you see this ink temperature?
Yeah.
That means that it has to 100% equal that value. Yeah.
Okay. This one,
so all this one does.
Yeah, between the server and client, it's like ping pong WebSocket, right?
It's always open, right? Because it's like WebSocket.
Yes.
Some people say that WebSocket connection is really expensive. Why Elixir in Phoenix is like cheap?
Well, processes in Elixir in Phoenix, or processes in Elixir in general, sorry, are quite cheap. They're about 1 kilobyte in memory. 2,000
different from threads,
2,000 kilobytes. Sorry?
Different from threads. Threads is quite huge,
Yeah, so if you have a thread, it's going to take a lot more than just that. They can grow bigger than 1 kilobyte, but they start off as 1 kilobyte.
Yeah.
So it's not a thread, it's just a process. But
Green
there
thread.
has to be a one, but you have to have a one application that running, which is the Beam, the VM, like it's always
Yeah, the
running.
VM.
But
Yeah.
in Beam there will be a process, small processes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the beam, so that way it makes a little bit more sense. Because even I say this, it's not going to make a lot of sense. So let me just say a little bit more. So the way the beam works is it has something called a scheduler, or actually it has multiple schedulers. So a typical computer nowadays, what does it have? Like 6 to 8 cores, something like that.
Well,
So,
web server could be, if it's a virtual machine, it could be just 2 or 4.
Yeah,
core.
well, whatever it is. I'm just talking about on
Yeah.
your local machine. But okay, let's say typical web server, you have like two cores, right?
Yeah.
Cheap one. So that means you have 2 schedulers running.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you could be running 2 processes in parallel. So if you look at the picture, thank you, Riza. This is your website, I suppose.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is
I'm
a great
taking
one.
this from Sasayuris. Yeah,
You didn't
his
take it.
talk.
You borrowed it, right?
Borrowed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go
for
on,
every
please.
single core you have its own scheduler.
Ah.
Okay.
And a process goes into like a hibernate state if it has nothing to do. So it won't be
Okay.
run. So you're not wasting anything on it.
Okay.
And so that's how the scheduler works, is that it looks for processes that have work to do. It runs them for about 2,000, they call them reductions, basically a function call, around 2,000 function calls. And then it parks it and does the next process. That's how you have equal work. And if one scheduler has more work than another one, and actually another scheduler can actually steal some work from another scheduler. So you have kind of a balancing of work happening.
So this scheduler works like a message queue, like
Yeah,
you know, like a message
something
queue,
like that.
rabbit
Like a queue.
and queue. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it works like a queue. It does. Okay, you do 2,000 function calls. Okay, you're done. Pause you. You go to the end of the line, next person. And it does that in order. And if the process has nothing to do, no work to do, it's just waiting for something to do, it never gets run. So there's no wasted time. So if you have a WebSocket connection has nothing to do, that's cheap. It's just sitting there doing nothing. It costs you no CPU time, only memory.
Okay. That's why it's cheap.
Yeah. Processors are super cheap. You can spin up more than 1 million processes on your machine. It's very, very cheap.
Oh,
1 million processes is very, very cheap to do.
But not
okay, so the
million threads.
WebSocket is not running through the Nginx, but through the Beam, right? That's
Yeah.
make the difference from regular WebSocket. Am I right?
Well, I don't know what you mean by a regular WebSocket. I mean, you just have to conform to the protocol, right?
Yeah, maybe.
No, probably something like this. Like Nginx works in a worker thread. Like it has a worker
Yeah.
thread. What Nginx, like if we are running like Nginx on a 2-core web server, that means we have 2 processes, but we can have thousands of worker thread of
Yeah.
Nginx. It depends on your configurations, but let's say 1,000 worker threads. That means if one WebSocket comes, it just occupied 1 worker thread of Nginx. So that
Oh,
means
really? One WebSocket takes 1 worker thread?
Yep. Until it stopped. Yep.
But a worker thread is
Because-
an actual thread, or is it not?
It's an actual worker thread, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Yeah, but
that's why it's
occupied-
expensive.
It's keep opening that worker threads. It's keep live until it's stopped. That's why it's
Closed.
expensive. So until it's closed. That's why if we have a lot of keep alive connections, it could end up bottleneck in Nginx process. In
Okay.
this worker thread. That's why it's expensive.
Yeah.
For Nginx. It's Nginx, not to
Okay.
mention
It's an
Apache
Nginx issue.
also have the same fall on the same issues with this keep alive or socket or streaming connection.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to do about Nginx. If you just, because I usually have Nginx in front of it. I haven't had an issue, but I don't have thousands of people connecting usually to my services. But you, like I said, you can also run it directly. You don't need to have some type of front load balancer. You can directly connect. And as I said before, it's about 1 kilobyte. I mean, max. So what's it? How big is the HTML page? 5 kilobyte times 10 times 1,000. I mean, you can have a lot of memory. It's not going to take you a lot. And also, you can spread this. So the other thing we didn't talk about too is, again, let's talk about the networking part, because I'm only giving you guys baby spoons of information over here because there's a lot to go over. There's built-in networking with Erlang. Therefore, Elixir has it too. You can connect them. So if you can have 5 machines, you can scale horizontally. You can have 5 machines and you can network them. And so you can see all the people connected too.
Okay.
So that way you have, so like let's say you have a chat server, you got 5 servers, you have 10 people on each server. You can, as long as they're networked together, you can actually see each other. You can have the same information being passed back and forth between them.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not explaining this. I feel like I'm not explaining this very easily.
Is this the
Like
I think what you
RPC?
mentioned is the VM is actually already connected.
It has
But
built-in
Distributed
networking.
system, right?
Yeah,
We talk about
it's a-
distributed system, right?
yeah, it's got built-in networking in terms of they can what do you call it? They can connect to each other. So remember I told you about you can send. So you have 2 processes that are doing work in parallel. They got concurrent work, and they want to work with each other.
Okay.
They can send messages back and forth.
Uh-huh.
If you network machines, you can actually send data from one machine to another, and it's the same. It's the same method. The only thing you need is the PID, process ID. So just like you go to Control-Alt-Delete, you find a process, you kill it, right?
Yep.
As long as you have the process ID, you can kill it from there using command line, using Linux. Same thing. If I have a process's ID, no matter which machine it's on, I can send in a message. As long as I have the PID, the process ID.
Oh. That's why.
Because if we roll back again, where does it come from? It comes from telephone switches. One switch has to talk to another switch, right? We have to share the
That's
data.
correct. I see. Okay.
Now, what we
Well-
didn't talk about too, now the reason I want to bring this up because actually I missed a step, and that's on me. Something else that's also built into Phoenix is called Presence. Riza, I think you know about this one, right?
Yeah. I
So
know.
what Presence
Presence?
is, yeah,
Yes.
Phoenix Presence. So remember I thought that you could make a chat with this using either channels or LiveView or even a mixture of the two. Presence will track who's logged in. So you can see, Riza's on, you can see Ekka's on, Ivan's on. Ekka dropped off for a second. There's a presence thing that can actually sync us all up. So each of us could be on a different server. As long as the machines are networked, it'll actually share the presence information across. That's built out of the box. So there's nothing you have to do as long as you're using presence.
Oh, neat.
So as you can see, this is one of the few languages out there that scales both horizontally and vertically, right? Vertically meaning you can add more resource to a single machine. Horizontally, you can scale by adding more machines. As long as you network those machines, they can work together.
It's
Processing
I'm out of
information.
Yeah.
It took your
I'm
breath away, didn't it?
processing. I'm out of word. Okay.
I'm trying
It's a-
to, we
it's
only
a
have so much
pops-
time, right? So I'm trying to
pops
throw you a
up.
lot of information. Maybe it's too much.
But one thing, the one
Yeah.
important thing, to persuade whoever in your team at work or client or something, one argument, cost saving. They will all be, okay, I'd like to try a new step. No way. Cost saving. Yes, please.
It could work. I mean, you can definitely bring it up. The way I sold it, as I said, oh, we can track people, right? Because businesses love that they can track people, and yeah, we can. And when I'm talking about tracking people, more so to see which pages are being used by which people, and how much time are they spending on the page. And it's strictly not to try to be a creeper, but just to try to understand what are my customers doing on the app, so we can actually track people that way. That's more so of the tracking I was interested in doing, and using presence, we can do that very easily.
Yeah. Interesting. So we can build something like analytics.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because as soon as they disconnect,
built-in analytics.
yeah. And this is just using primitives built into the language, built into OTP, right? Because basically, you have a supervisor that's counting how many children it has, which is each child would be the different connections. So as soon as the person closes the tab, that process is dead. Therefore, their children has gone down by increment of 1. You're just doing very simple stuff, basically, at this point.
I'm thinking right now the old case that I've done with Node.js for the concurrency thing here is about the live score. Well, I did have a sports website. They need to track a live score, which is of the NFL. That is really, yeah, they need the score to be as real time as possible.
Yeah.
This is a sports site, and at the time I solved it with the React based application, but the web server is all PHP, but it cannot handle the amount of data is exchanging. So I built it with a separate server with uh, Node.js at the time, and behind it there's a message queue to keep broadcasting thing behind it. um, so I think with the same case, I think, even though I cannot change the entire pages to use Phoenix, but I can make a web component that talks with, for example, Elixir at the backend instead of the Node.js to handle this data exchange with this WebSocket with channel, and do the processes to keep updating with real-time score. That could be a good case to use Elixir,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, Phoenix has PubSub built in. You don't need to bring in
Hmm.
any kind of existing PubSub mechanism like Redis, things like that.
Yep.
So, and then also the channels are actually on top of PubSub. So you can send one message to everybody on the channel. So if they're
Basically,
watching
it's
one
just
specific game,
broadcasting. Yeah,
yeah.
it's broadcasting.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually called broadcast. It really is called broadcast. So very interesting article. If you go to phoenixframework.org, they have a blog section. November 3rd, 2015. 2 million
Oh.
WebSocket connections within Phoenix.
9 years ago.
2015.
2015,
2015.
the road to 2 million WebSocket connections.
That's it. The road. That's it. The road to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
one instance,
Zoom
on a
in.
it's a very, very beefy box. I think they list the size of the box. Because 2 million people on one server, that's even 1 kilobyte. It's a lot of connections. So they had to do some special stuff, but not nothing too crazy. They talked about what they do. So here we go, 15 gigabytes of RAM. 15 gigs of RAM is not difficult.
For entire Twitter.
For 2 million connections, right?
But that's not much.
One
This
box.
is almost 0% all the time. Is that?
Yeah, because as I told you before, if there's nothing happening, it's not doing anything.
Okay.
And then they actually, they tested and they sent one message. It took a couple seconds only, I think. It took later on and towards the end about how long it took. It's a couple of seconds, I think. But there's also an article because WhatsApp uses Erlang. WhatsApp, I think, already passed is it 1 billion on one box or something crazy like that? That's an old article too.
Yeah. And with a small team of engineering team, right?
Yeah, it's like 50
Not so
engineers
many.
only.
50 engineers, yeah, 50.
50.
50,
So
yeah.
this one, they just talk about they had to do some stuff to So they actually had to edit the box to make it accept more connections. So it's not an Elixir issue necessarily. As you can see, this is about editing
the
Linux
system
to add
operation.
more connections. So you're not
Yeah.
stopped by your service, you're stopped by Linux.
System operating system, yeah.
Yeah, the operating system.
Default config.
Default
Stopped by
config
default
operating
config.
system, yeah.
So this part they're talking about how they found a bottleneck. So they got to 30,000 and it's too many. So they found an issue. It's pretty easy. So
I
if you scroll towards
see.
the end, if you can give the final stuff, it's really interesting if you actually read all the stuff. This thing called the observer, it's actually built into it too. We didn't actually even talk about that part yet.
Yeah. I try to open it, but it fails, so I cannot
So
show.
you're looking at this box. It looks like some professional thing, right? Maybe Control-Alt-Delete, something like that. No, this is built into Erlang. So if you have a running system, you can open up this terminal. You can see, what's the load, where's all the stuff happening, which process is using up all my data. That's what this is. So you can actually connect to it.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. This is interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Someone
Ivan,
mentioned
you can
in the
sleep tonight?
comment that
Too exciting.
inertia. There's an inertia plugin
Yes,
to use
yes.
with Phoenix. Yeah, maybe you guys talked about it when I was off. I don't know, but it's pretty neat. So
Inertia?
you
No.
can basically use any of your favorite UI front-end library with Phoenix.
Oh,
It's pretty
the root
convenient.
question is this: can we use React
Oh.
server-side rendering in LiveView?
LiveView.
I think
Then
there. That's a good question. I'm sure somebody's worked on that. I did see there's definitely some libraries with React in Elixir with LiveView. So it may be possible. I haven't looked at it. But with LiveView, I mean, I don't really see a reason to actually not use it.
Client
Very
side
few
React,
apps.
sure, because there's already inertia integration with SSR.
Oh, the inertia, yeah.
Yeah, the inertia, yeah.
So inertia is the server-side rendering?
No, it's kind of a plugin library to bridge client side for client side UI. I don't know if now it supports server side as well, but fundamentally, like originally, it's for client side.
I think so. I think this is server-side rendering, no? But I'm not sure either.
I'll have to take a look. There's too many things to take a look at these days.
Yeah.
Oh, it has a server-side rendering section, experimental.
Oh, experimental.
GitHub.
Where?
Yeah.
Server-side rendering.
open
This
it.
one?
Yeah, there is a
Your
section
screen
at
is
the
not
end.
on. Yeah, just open the GitHub repo.
What React? Oh, sorry.
Your screen is not on. Yep.
Sorry.
So originally it's for client side, but now they're adding experimental SSR support.
Oh, nice.
And pops up, and we can have real-time live score.
Yeah.
Application.
But you already have pops up in the Phoenix LiveView, right?
Yes. You can use that.
Wow. Okay. We have
Anything
a lot
you want to talk about? Anything? Any other question? Or something that we are missing to ask or to explain?
Wow, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about, but I think we talked everybody's ear off today.
Yeah, maybe part 2.
Save it on for
Yeah, it could
part
be.
2.
If I mean, did you want to go over any questions in the
I think
in here or no?
Oh.
Or shall we call it a day?
There
maybe we
someone
can
asked, can you use Rust
yeah.
in Elixir? Like,
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we
Is
can
it?
use
use
NIF,
Rust,
right?
Rust, Zig, and C. The question went that way.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, did you ask a question?
Can we
Yeah,
use
so someone asked,
Rust?
can we use Rust or Zig or C in Elixir?
Yes. So first they supported C. They meaning like the Erlang people. They built in something so basically it's called a NIF, native implemented
NIF, yeah.
function. Yeah. So the very first thing they supported was C, and then they also allowed Java and using JInterface, but nobody really uses that. At least they say you shouldn't use that. But yeah, nowadays you can definitely use Rust. As I said, I used Rust before. I used something called Rustler. A lot of people are using what's the other one you called? Is it called GIF? Is that what it's called? Or Zig? Sorry. Yeah. So there's something called Ziggler,
Zig.
which is the same thing for. Yeah, it's the same thing for Zig.
Oh, this is Erlang function, not Elixir.
Yes. Well, no, Erlang NIFs are
Erlang-
called native implemented
Erlang.
functions. So you see over here, NIF as a function is implemented in C instead of Erlang.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So Zig and Rust both will compile to C-like
Okay.
thing.
Hmm.
So whether you use Rust or C or Zig, you're all compiling to a NIF,
To see,
basically.
yeah. NIF, yeah.
NIF.
Makes sense. Yay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now I just realized that Erlang using Hexdocs or a documentation framework from Elixir.
Yeah, yes. So Erlang has finally gone into the 21st
Finally.
century and started using
What
the
did it
Elixir
use
one.
previously?
I think you can still find it if you go to
Yeah.
you have
Machine.
to be able to find the old ones. It was really ugly, basically. I mean, it's usable, but it's not as good as the Elixir one.
Oh yeah. There is no the old one. There is I cannot find the old one because they changed it to the new one.
Yeah,
Way
they may
back.
have gotten rid of it completely. I'm not too sure how they do the old docs.
Way back time machine.
Way back time machine. A good idea. Yeah, yeah. It's like the first web page built by CERN. The HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with plain
It still
white and
exists.
blue link. Yeah. All right. Any other question that I miss?
Okay, let's wrap it up for
We
now.
covered.
Oh,
Yeah.
please plug your YouTube channel.
What is
Yeah.
your
Oh,
YouTube channel?
my YouTube
What's your
channel
YouTube channel
is.
called, Alan?
I have a couple of them, but you can if it's
Oh.
specifically about
Oh,
Elixir stuff. Just look for Plangora. I'm not sure if I even have.
Plangora.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's even
Okay.
a specific name for it or not.
Yeah, there is.
Is there a slash something? I don't even know. Maybe slash C
At
slash
Plangora.
Plangora.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube
Uh,
at Plangora. This one.
Yeah. So I plan to add more Elixir videos pretty soon because I
Mhm.
used to create a lot of content, at least 1 to 2 a week, but it's been a while
Okay.
since I've
Oh.
posted something.
Oh, nice. So yeah, just hit subscribe and if
open it on
viewers
the
want to
browser.
want to
connect with you.
connect with you,
Where should they go?
Oh,
where should they go?
Riza, you know that already because you were following me today.
Yes. On X or Twitter? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It's
post
your
a lot,
name,
but
right?
if you go to
Yeah.
x.com/AlanWyma, ALLENWYMA,
Yeah.
you'll find me there.
Okay. Great. Okay, that's
Thank
it
you.
for tonight. Thank you very much,
Thank you so
Alan, for the
much.
time, for the
Thank
explanation.
you for
Yeah.
all the
Information
The
Yep, information overload, right? Just
overload.
give it a
information
try.
overload.
the
Highly
gears in our
recommend.
head. are turning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be writing all on
hopefully,
Elixir now.
yeah, hopefully we can, we can do part 2
Advocate.
with a lot more audience, and and if people want to know more about Elixir and Erlang, maybe you can join the Erlang Elixir Asia meetup, right? In the
Yeah.
meetup.com. Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
that's it.
when is it?
Maybe
Yeah.
when?
When is the next one? Oh, definitely follow the group, and
Yeah.
you'll find out
When's
because
the
I'm not too sure.
when's the
So
meetup?
now, hopefully this month we'll try to see what we can do.
Okay, okay.
Oh,
So if you are interested in Elixir and Erlang, please do follow the meetup group, and maybe see you next week. That's it from us.
And
Bye bye,
thank
Awesome.
you. Bye bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
cool.